Dr. Rina Pratiwi. She is a lecturer and pediatrician. She is now engaged in pediatric department, medical faculty, Universitas Diponegoro. Her research conduct in child malnutrition, child micronutrient deficiency. So today we will learn and sharing the experience with Dr. Rina. I think the topic very interesting for developing countries. Yeah. So okay, Dr. Rina. So the time is yours.
Okay, thank you, Miss Etika. Okay, good afternoon all. Okay, I hope you all enjoy the weather in Semarang, especially really hot. Too hot, yeah, I know. It's been really hot these days. Yeah, even me, I feel some like kind of heat stroke this week. Yeah, because it's very hot. But when you feel sometimes in the morning at 4 a.m. maybe it's very cold for us. Okay, because we usually feel hot like this, but at 4 a.m. usually it's feel cold. Okay, so don't forget to enjoy your holiday here. Okay, today the committee asked me to give or share about intervention for malnutrition and micronutrient deficiency, and especially in disaster scene. Okay, and the disaster scene, as we know that in Indonesia, from yesterday lecture that we are sometimes we are vulnerable for disaster like volcano and flood. Okay, especially in Central Java or in Semarang, it's very common for us to have flood sometimes in a year. And that we say that Semarang is flood city. Okay, but yeah, so today is for malnutrition and micronutrient deficiency. So outline for today is overview, screening, prevention, management, and conclusion. For the overview, as we know that nutrition is necessary for daily living. So it's a provision of good nutrition for children is crucially important for supporting their physical, mental, and social development. And disaster, we know that affect food security and nutrition, and then cause limited food accessibility, affecting health services and disturbing the care structure within the society. And disaster does not affect all segments of the population equally. Yeah, we know that some groups are more vulnerable to disaster than others, and with the most deleterious effects exerted on children. From the literature, we found that 45% of all child deaths in 2011 in low-income and middle-income countries were linked to malnutrition. And this risk is heightened in disaster. This is some multiple forms of malnutrition present in the context of crisis. Actually, this is like the same, even not in disaster. And especially in developing country, we have this all kind of malnutrition here. So we have wasting, severe stunting, micronutrient deficiencies, and obesity. So in Indonesia here, we can learn about all malnutrition with or without the disaster. Okay. So what is the effect of disaster on children, especially when the children has already malnutrition before they undergone for the disaster? First one is communicable disease. This communicable disease can cause by contaminated water, milk, poor sanitation, imbalanced diet or malnutrition, cause gastrointestinal and respiratory tract infection, wound or skin infection, and malaria. In disaster, diarrhea or cholera were most common. Okay, so their incidence is higher among severely malnourished and children fed with breast milk substitute. And also for non-communicable effects, we can found the macro and micronutrient deficiencies such as kwashiorkor, iron deficiency anemia, vitamin A deficiency blindness, beriberi, pellagra, edema, and goiters are present. And also it affects the mental health, especially in children, like lack of access of food and familial food security difficulties degrades the mental health of the children. So this is the specific issues related to child nutrition in disaster. First is about the breastfeeding practice. So what is the issue? Okay, so it's still common about the widespread breastfeeding misconception. They said that if the mother is having a stress or having a problem, then the breast milk that she produces is not no longer have a nutritious compound in it. Okay, so the mother will force or will maybe forced to give the infant formula or the breast milk substitute. Okay, and then lack of privacy for mothers to breastfeed. Yes, it's, of course, it's a disaster condition. You cannot ask for private room, or you cannot ask for some kind of room to have your children breastfeed. Okay, you have to do it in front of others in the court. Okay, so in the public area. So it's make the mothers so became more stressful. And large donation of infant formula, rubber nipples, and feeding bottles. As we know, if we heard, if we heard that some area has a disaster, has an earthquake or flood, we spontaneously send a donation to them. Okay, and usually what will we send? It's like infant formula, okay, and like fortified cereal. Okay, and some kind like that. So infant formula we give to donate is abundantly, okay, but no one give like some kind of food that can give the mother more nutrients so that she can still produce the breast milk with full composition. Okay, and food insecurity for mothers, and also stress and psychological trauma, lack of awareness and commitment to international guidelines, lack of nationalized IYCFE policy, and also for the food allergies. Okay, but sometimes in Indonesia, in the old times, we don't have like food allergies in children here. Okay, but nowadays the number of food allergies is increasing in the children, especially after the COVID pandemic. Okay, because all children is put by their parents at home, so they cannot go outside and they cannot going and meeting other people. So the allergy is increasing after the pandemic. Children are steadily becoming allergic to common food like eggs, milk, peanuts, fish, etc. Stockpile of allergen-free food for disaster is inadequate. Okay, because sometimes the allergen-free food is more expensive, yeah, than food that contain allergies like egg. Egg is some kind cheaper, right? Than like or milk than the non-dairy food kind. And the social cultural factors. Okay, so custom and cultural practice, religion, psychological norms, handling properties, individual tolerance, greatly influence food acceptance, consumption, and child feeding practice in disaster. Okay, so as we know, custom and cultural is in Indonesia, it's very different between area, right? Sometimes maybe in some area they cannot or they never eat some kind of food, yes, but because of the donation or because of the volunteer that came to the area is different, have different social or different culture from the children or from the people in this area. So sometimes it cannot meet the needs, okay, because sometimes the people in disaster will like reject it, okay, will reject it, and then when they reject it, they absolutely will not accept anything from the volunteer. Okay, this is an example, okay, because I cannot find the number in Indonesia. So this is example when it's earthquake disaster in China. So they have number, so the prevalence of underweight, stunting, and wasting of the children aged 6 until 23 months. In here we see that in all of the children I think it's about more than 1,000 children. Some of them has already had malnutrition before the disaster. Okay, so this is what we have to concern about. So after we deal with the disaster, this number cannot be increasing. Okay, so we have to at least maintain it, and it's probably much better if we can decrease the number that from children that have malnutrition. So what is the goals of nutrition action in emergencies? Okay, so the goals is, the first one is reducing level of wasting to below conventionally defined emergency rate of threshold. Reducing and or preventing micronutrient deficiencies because this markedly increase mortality risk. And reducing the specific vulnerability of infants and young children in crisis through the promotion of appropriate child care, with special emphasis on infant and young child feeding practice. And preventing a life-threatening deterioration of nutritional status by ensuring access by emergency affected population to adequate, safe, and nutritious food that meet minimum nutrient needs. Okay, so this is the goal. What can the health provider, especially the nutritionist, do in emergency situation? So what kind of nutrition program elements, okay, that we can provide for children in the disaster? The first one is general food assistance, management of severe acute malnutrition, management of moderate acute malnutrition, delivery of micronutrients, infant and young child feeding in emergency, treatment of diarrhea with oral rehydration therapy or zinc, and then prevention and treatment of vitamin A deficiency, food and nutrition assistance for people living with HIV, the psychosocial components of nutrition, and nutritional care for groups with special needs. Okay, this is the disaster preparedness recommendation for child nutrition. Usually, every country have their own disaster plan. Okay, so this is below the Ministry of Health. Okay, so sometimes it's different between one country and another one because they usually have like different disaster. Okay, there is some country, maybe the crisis is like war, some country with natural disaster, okay, and another country with another kind of crisis. Okay, so this is the disaster plan. The first one is integration of nutrition intervention with community and health promotion activities. Respecting and understanding community social cultural norms and psychological, economic, and physical needs in building capacity for child nutrition disaster preparedness. And stockpiling of food specifically designed for children and providing food varieties and collaboration with the food supply chain. And also consulting women and girls on food choice. Okay, because women here, we know that women and girl is very vulnerable also for deficiency, especially in the micronutrient deficiency, especially mother with pregnancy and lactation. Okay, so usually they ask more, okay, to the women and girls. Okay, so what do you want to eat? Can you eat this kind of food or not? Okay, so what about the education? Okay, so the education is also important. Okay, so general child education and strict fulfillment of universal basic education is necessary to empower the children. Health education and promotion for children, family, community, and relief aid workers, and individualized family education for children with special needs. So this is emergency nutrition intervention. So they divided, this is from emergency nutrition ACF. They divided into 3 axes. The axis 1 is the diagnosis and analysis. The intervention is first do the surveillance, smart survey, and rapid nutrition evaluation. The second axis is management of acute malnutrition. So the intervention is to treat the severe acute malnutrition, moderate acute malnutrition, and active screening. And the third axis is prevention of acute malnutrition. This is giving the infant and young child feeding, so based to accordingly to WHO, food assistance, blanket feeding, and optional intervention. So how do we do the rapid nutrition evaluation? Okay, so in the disaster condition, we cannot do the anthropometric properly. Okay, we cannot measure the weight or measure the height. Okay, so how can we do the screening rapidly? We can use the mid upper arm circumference. Okay, so the mid upper arm circumference here can be used to screen malnutrition in children aged 6 until 59 months, especially in disaster condition. Okay, you just only need the ribbon. Okay, so the ribbon, so you can measure and then you can plot it to this table. Okay, plot to this table. You for the age 6 until 60 months, you can find that the children is in moderate acute malnutrition if it's the measurement between 115 and 125 millimeters. And for severe acute malnutrition, if it's below the 115 millimeters. Okay, and then how can we do the intervention for these children? Okay, this is the life-saving nutrition-specific intervention. The first one is to promote and protect and support the breastfeeding of the children age 0 until 23 months of old. And then promotion and protection of and support to the complementary feeding to the children age 6 until 23 months of age. Treatment and management of acute malnutrition, including both severe and moderate acute malnutrition among the children aged 0 until 6 months. Okay, and then prevention and control of micronutrient deficiencies among the nutritionally vulnerable population groups, which are under 5 children and adolescent girls. Okay, so we have to ensure the access to and utilization of micronutrient supplementation. So we have to give the vitamin A to the children aged 6 until 59 months of age, the iron folic acid supplementation to adolescent girls, vitamin A to the children aged 60 and home fortification, deworming tablet distribution to the children aged 12 until 59 months, and home fortification with micronutrient powder among the children aged 6 until 59 months. And then if we found the children with malnutrition or severe acute malnutrition, then what can we do, okay, in the scene of disaster? So the response to acute malnutrition is broad and includes several elements such as medical, food, water and hygiene, and social services. Children who still have an appetite can stay at home, okay, or in tent, okay, and receive outpatient care. Okay, they need treatment with specially formulated foods, and their recovery must be monitored regularly by a trained health worker. And children who have medical problems and do not have an appetite need inpatient care in a clinic or hospital. They need specially formulated meals and treatment for infection or other potential complication. This is what we use here in Indonesia for some kind of disaster. We give like ready-to-use therapeutic food. This usually used also in outpatient children with severe malnutrition. But this is like this, okay? So it's a paste, so not base paste. So, but actually it is very high in calorie, and because of Indonesia children, they seldom eat paste, okay? Maybe so they seldom eat bread with peanut butter, so the acceptability and the palatability of this RUTF is very low in children with malnutrition here in Indonesia, okay? Because they usually eat like real food, okay, like rice and maybe egg, okay, and milk is more acceptable in children with malnutrition here in Indonesia. Okay, and then for the maintain, okay, for children with not with malnutrition, we can give first is breastfeeding. Okay, so breastfeeding can be life-saving for young children in emergencies, and young children in emergencies face higher risk of diarrhea, pneumonia, and undernutrition. Lack of food, unsafe water, poor sanitation, overcrowding, and overburdened health system put infants and young children at greater risk. And what about infants who are not breastfed? Okay, we cannot close our eyes because there's a lot of infants that cannot have the privilege to receive the breast milk. So infant formula is still the appropriate breast milk substitute for infants less than 6 months of age. And use of infant formula in children over 6 months of age will depend on pre-emergency practices, resources available, and sources of safe alternative milks, adequacy of complementary foods, and government and agency policies. And next is for the infant age 6 months and above. The key consideration is based on pre-existing and existing nutrient gaps, the seasonality, and then social cultural belief, food security, current access to appropriate foods, quality of locally available complementary foods, including commercial foods. So compliance to the code and with WHO guidance on ending inappropriate promotion of foods for infant and young children of available products, and costs, of course, and then reports of children with disability associated feeding difficulties, maternal nutrition, and worse condition. This is option for addressing nutritional needs of older infants and young children. Here, sorry, it's a little bit small. So the source of food like basic food and commodities from general ration with supplement of inexpensive local available food. And then we also the other option is from blended foods and additional food in supplementary feeding program. Okay. Here are the issue or the challenge and implication for planning food needs for older infants and young children. Okay, so the first one is the feeding frequency. We know that children, especially under 2 years old, they have to feed frequently, right? So they have to feed every maybe 2 until 3 hours. Okay, so it can be issue because in the disaster condition, in the public kitchen, of course, they cannot make the food every 3 hours. Okay, so they make food maybe 3 times a day or 2 times a day. So it's kind of difficult for children under 2 years old. So they have to use maybe in the commercially food. Okay, so because it's can only be, it just needs some add the water to make the commercially food. But the issue again is that we have to provide the clean water. Okay, so it's rather difficult also in the disaster condition. Okay, and then next is the household food security. The household food security may contribute to intra-household food distribution that doesn't allow nutritional needs of young children to be met, because we know that children is different from one and another in the need of the nutrition. Okay, like maybe you and your friends have a different need of nutrition. It's the same with the children also. But in the disaster condition, we cannot make it individually. Okay, they just made it in the big bowl and then distribute separately to every children. And then safe and appropriate food preparation and caring activities. So this is because of the lack access to clean water, poor sanitation, and then inexperienced caregiver and mothers overburdened with meeting household food needs may contribute to abnormal and inadequate caring practice. Okay, and this is also an issue for the feeding the orphans. Okay, so who will take care of the orphans, right, in the disaster, and particularly in situation where HIV/AIDS prevalence is very high. And then next, see for micronutrient supplementation. So for children aged 6 until 59 months, multiple micronutrient supplements may be necessary to meet nutrient requirements where fortified foods are not being provided, in conjunction with other intervention to improve complementary foods and feeding practices. In malaria endemic areas, the provision of iron in any form, including MNPs, should be implemented in conjunction with measures to prevent, diagnose, and treat malaria. Here in Indonesia, we have these MNPs. It's called taburia. So it contains the multiple micronutrient, and actually they give it to, before this they usually give it to children with malnutrition. Okay, but I think it's more useful if they give it to children in a disaster condition. And provision of iron through this intervention should not make children who do not have access to malaria prevention strategies, and prompt diagnosis of malaria illness and treatment with effective anti-malarial drug therapy. And also vitamin A supplementation is recommended for children aged 6 until 59 months. Okay, here in Indonesia we have a vitamin A supplementation program every 6 months. Okay, every 6 months from infant age 6 months until 59. Okay, so actually it's already in our policy. So when in the disaster, so I think it's they don't change the policy about it. So now we have the disaster plan, and how can we combat or prevent malnutrition and disaster condition, but we still have gaps. Okay, so we still have gaps and challenges about this condition or gaps in child nutrition. Okay, this is several policy that in the global organization made. Okay, so this is the existing gaps and challenge. Okay, so the existing gaps and challenge is such as pre-disaster malnutrition, gaps in availability, accessibility, and quality of food, and administrative and organizational challenge. Okay, such as lack coordination, poor communication, absence of nutritional expert. Okay, so sometimes if we don't know in the disaster area how many children aged below 6 months or how many children aged above 2 years. So when they prepare the meals, sometimes it cannot meet the to the children condition. Okay, so when the children is more like between 6 until 1 month, 6 months until 1 year, they only prepare for food for children above 2 years old. Okay, so then the infant aged less than 1 year will only receive the commercial food only. Okay, so it cannot meet the nutrition needs. Okay, so for the conclusion from my presentation here, that we know that disaster has many effects, especially in health, and children is one of the most vulnerable population that get the effect from disaster. And prevent and treat malnutrition, especially macro and micronutrient, is important to maintain good growth and development in children. And collaboration of government, health provider, and community are important to reach the goal. Okay, I think that's all from me. Maybe you all have experience, maybe not question, okay? Or do you have any question? Maybe experience, because sometimes a student has more experience in being volunteer. Yes, no? Okay. Okay, then maybe if there is no question, we can end this session. Thank you so much, and please enjoy here in Semarang the weather. You will miss it, okay? When you go home. Thank you.